I greet you all. Moses Mugisha is my name. Living here in Oslo, Norway. This is Euroforum, your platform where we communicate with peers. Today, the 28th of January, we come back again to serve you. We've made it a devotion and dedication to be of service and of value. Every Sunday, we come in with a different guest or different guests. Today, we are delighted to have a one-on-one with a lady with a very humble profile, but again, huge in achievement. She's a lady living here in Oslo, Norway, who has done a couple of things, and maybe a Norwegian Ugandan living in Norway is familiar with the term Noshikpotet, one who is just all round, I mean, to make things happen. Yes, but before we get to hear from her, I want to invite you to invite a friend, a diasporan living somewhere in away from Uganda, but in one part of the world where you feel would love to get some nuggets of inspiration on a topic, one aspect to do with integration while we uphold our African values. That would be our line of talk this evening. But I want to greet you all, our dear viewers, our guests, and our regular guests. And in a special way, I want to greet you all, my team, Euroforum team, where we have Smokey John Remy in Denmark, Samantha Elf in Finland, Jerry Nassali in Sweden. We have Narumu Irene in Uganda, Muza Gibson in Uganda, and Janat Nagolola. Together, we make these things happen, and we want to always appreciate you that you let us do that. Eunice is, like I said, is a very humble lady with a very humble profile, but she's one who inspires me in line with integration. Eunice has lived in Norway for a couple of years, 2007 to date. And among the things she has done, she's an employee like many in Norway. She's a planning architect working at Envidan, Norway. And besides that, she has her own company, that is Eunice and Anzara AS, that is limited in English. And she works with, she collaborates with Latzero Architects, and that's owned by Lawrence Chitoleko, a Ugandan, where they deliver a couple of architecture services. Among those, in the first place, they target immigrants in Norway and in different parts of the diaspora community. Among those, they collaborate with Sechitoleko and Eunice, collaborate with several actors in their countries of origin. Here in Norway, they are working on a project, that's a renovation project in Eidsvoll, and their client is a Cameroonian. That's actually supporting walking the talk. And they're also working on a renovation project in Dal, that's a place in Norway, and their client is also a Cameroonian. They are working on a project in Fetsund, and they're also having a Ugandan client. Back home in Uganda, as we discuss upholding African heritage, they are also serving and supporting Ugandans. They're working on a project that is Children of Renzoli. It's a health center in Kasese. Eunice, away from her work as a planning architect, she's a co-founder of My African Aesthetics. That is a word which might not be familiar to many, but she will break it down to us. But on that podcast, she hosts a couple of interviews with several immigrants with African background. And she has hosted many. Among those, there is Solomon Jagwe, a Ugandan who designed the app, Nkoza Nenancha, in Virginia. They've hosted a lady she's from Zimbabwe. Yes, the name has skipped me, but they have also hosted the late Doreen Adengo, one of the renowned architects in Uganda. Those in that field know her. May her soul rest in peace. But is still in line with the voluntary work. Eunice has worked closely with a lady called Kizom Udeze. Those living in Norway and very inclined to empowering immigrants, majorly women, know that she is the founder of Her Space. That's an organization that works to help Africans or immigrants make sense of who they are. Yes, there is so much to talk about Eunice. But for now, let us focus on her life as an immigrant who is living in Norway and a typical immigrant. I tend to, in my talks with her, I've told her that I refer to your lifestyle or your network as a typical Norwegian network. Eunice is married to her husband has been the former mayor of Ulensak Communa, that's Ulensak municipality. And that, of course, tells you how much anyone married to a native in that country is, in a way, living a typical life of a native in that country. But again, she manages to navigate her life as a mom, her life as a wife to a native in this country and upholding African values. The question is, how does she do that? That's basically the prompter of our talk. Eunice, saagala nnyo kwogerako bingi ebimu nnyinza okuba nga sinza bimalayo naye at least I've managed to pick those that are easily accessible on Google and maybe those who know you in your small network, but there might, of course, so much to tell about you. Eunice, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Moses. I'm very, very glad to be here.
Thank you. Yes, Eunice, I might have said so much about you. Maybe a lot is, of course, what meets the common eye. But again, there is so much we might not know about people. People know you, of course, as the men have referred to you. When we posted the program, there were so many who said, Ms. Jukiza, I need to watch this lady. Yeah, but away from what I've told, who is Eunice?
I think you've covered most of it. I am a Ugandan, a proud Ugandan. I'm a Mugwere, Hoizeyo, abantu bombona batuona. And I'm a wife, like you said, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a brother. My upbringing is from Uganda. So I came to Norway when I was 22, going on to 23. So when I refer to my upbringing in this conversation, I'm literally giving credit to the motherland because that's where I spent my first years. So I think that's it. I don't know what else anyone would want to know about me. I have 4 siblings who I care a lot about, and yes, that's me. I am Emugwede from Uganda, very proud Ugandan.
Yeah, proud Ugandan, and I love it that we are you actually addressed that you're Emugwede, a proud one, because you're looking at upholding African values. And yes, to you, our view out there, we usually have shows where we use basically Uganda. This particular one, for purposes of inclusion, like I said, Eunice is married to Norwegian, and I guess he will watch or he's watching, and he certainly has a Norwegian network. So we shall be using mostly English for this show. But of course, naturally, there are some phrases and words that are just natural to be aired out in Uganda. So for you who only speaks Uganda, or rather English, you bear with us in case there are some inputs where you don't pick. Yeah, Eunice, thank you for coming around. Thank you for sparing time.
Thank you.
It hasn't been that of it hasn't been that easy to spare time. I mean, to get you on away from your tight schedule to have a talk with you. But right now I have you here, and we hope that by the end of this show, someone who will be inspired at least to also look at how would I juggle this life as an immigrant, but again, I'm living a complete life. Yeah, Eunice, you certainly have a life where you've had cases. As I listened to one of your podcasts, there was a podcast with yeah, I'm skipping.
I remember them. If you describe them, I remember them.
Yes, it is Tapiwa Matside.
From Zimbabwe.
Yes, in your talk, in your podcast, somewhere she said that her mom had never realized that she was Black until she went to the UK.
Yes.
Yes. So, and I think Yes, and I think this is something to do with identity and things in that line. Yeah, Eunice, in your life in Norway, yes, I've hinted on yes when you came, but for this particular show, we shall focus on those things to do with integration. As an immigrant, married to a Norwegian, also a Norwegian in a typical Norwegian setting, integrating and you as a Black lady, have you found any challenges in line with your identity as an African?
Definitely, definitely. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone that's listening or that's watching. And I also want to emphasize that I don't have all the answers. And I will be speaking mostly from my own experience, but also from the shared experiences that I've had talking to people here, but also even on the podcast, as Moses says. Now, what Tapiwa said about her mom resonates with so many people, including me. And maybe many of us who come from the continent, when we come, at least for those of us who have been living in our fantastic bubble in Uganda, not that we don't care about the rest of the world, but we have enough to deal with and we're quite content. It's like we're satisfied. And then when you're taken out of Uganda and brought into Norway or Sweden or wherever, then, because before you have been defining yourself as a Ugandan and that you haven't had a problem with that, you're actually proud. And then you come, at least for my experience, I come into Norway and I came to study. So there is no excuse that I came into an environment and people, were not highly educated or they didn't know what they were saying or anything, but their terminologies. Then suddenly I had to identify as Black, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? I'm not Black, I'm Ugandan, if you know what I mean. Like I'm first Ugandan then. But there is that mind twist, and I think it takes time for some people to realize. But unfortunately, it is a fact. It's one of those things that we cannot control. We cannot control what other people have learned about us. Yeah, so definitely, I have had challenges, and that one was one of them. And it was, I felt like it was difficult for me to kind of like give up my Ugandanness. So I always had to remind people, I'm Ugandan from a part of Africa. So, but anyway, when we go back to, for me, this ties into identity, an identity for me is, who do I believe I am, and that is a very, very important question that I feel I have to ask myself often, especially when I'm away from my people in Uganda. Because I think for me, who I am definitely, how I define myself definitely plays a big role in how I integrate, or how I've integrated also in this society, self-identity is about self-awareness, who am I, and some people are lucky enough they can trace and sometimes when we say it, it's as if we're just saying it out of fun, but when you're uprooted from your roots and you're brought into another context, it is very important to know exactly who you are so that no one can play with your confidence. No one can play with your identity, because I feel like the biggest thing when I've talked to people here who are lost, and I have been lost once in a while too, and I think all of us have, whereby you're like, what am I doing here? Why don't I just go home? But that self-awareness for me, I feel like, yes, identity is key. Who I am is key. Defining it, and how do I say it? And of course, I want to say that the process never ends, but to reevaluate myself all the time. So how has this self-awareness and identity, and knowing that I'm an African, and then I have to accept the international connotation that I'm Black, this identity, how has it played a role in how I integrate? One, when I know myself, I can better position, I'm in a better position to identify what or who to surround myself with. In Uganda, people are watching out for me. My sisters are watching out for me. Your auntie, your coach, people are concerned about you. Here, especially if you haven't built your network, you really have to know who you are to guard yourself. So for me, I
Exactly.
feel that has really helped me in guarding who I surround myself with. I don't care whether they are Black, Asian, white. It's the character in them. I think how I choose my friends and who is in my core space is dependent on that identity that I have. I'm like, this is who I am. These are the people I want to surround myself with. Then I can easily communicate my values to Moses, to my husband here, to my friends here, and without shame, because I'm being true to myself. Then I'm in a better position to find ways to be better. Because when you look in the mirror and you're honest with yourself, then you're like, okay, this is me. There are some good parts and some bad parts. This I can improve, you know, this I can learn from this society. But I'm like, no, this one, it is the right thing for this society to learn from me, and I will show them. So I don't know, also clear references, you know, also clear references. Like I said, I am a Ugandan, a proud Ugandan, and there are certain values that have gotten me into places here in Norway that I got from home.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, that
So
resonates well with me.
so I don't know if that answers the question,
No,
but that is what I could come up with now.
does, and I'm actually glad that you broadened it up because yes, as I listened to that podcast, yes, I realized that many of us are in that bubble, in that umbrella. There is a lot. There are so many stereotypes. There are many kids here, and I realized some teenagers who think Africa is one country.
Not just teenagers, please.
So
Let's be honest.
some people, and at one point, I almost got offended somewhere. I was somewhere where I taught a group of Norwegian, the Maganda dance, and I was very clear from the start that this is one of our traditional dances. Okay, and it was so funny that when it went in writing, I mean, it was tagged as African dance. And again, I revisited this. I was very clear that I'm talking about a Uganda. I'm not even saying a Ugandan dance, but I'm very specific that one of our traditional dances, implying that there are so many. You understand?
Yeah.
But it is very easy to put us in one bubble, African that. But Eunice, do you think this narrative is or this mindset impression is something we've contributed to, or it is something that has just?
In my honest view, I feel like there is a redundancy by people in the West to learn about other cultures, especially cultures that they say the South. Serious, we have YouTube, we have TikTok, you just have to type in. So I think, but I also have learned later on, we were talking about certain subtle things in Norwegian society. It's my view again. I've come to learn later on, but it can be, how do they call it? In Norwegian, they call it hersketeknikk. Because it is I personally feel it's very demeaning for you to think that my job is to explain things to you. You know, like we ladies, you go to work, you fixed your hair, you fly, you're doing your business. We have Google, we have YouTube, we have TikTok. You get what I mean? You know where I'm getting? You're in a professional environment. The focus should be on your professionality and how good you are, because you got there for a reason. And then someone is digressing and asking you, oh, your food smells like this. What? That's not your business. So that's where the adamance, I think, comes from. Like, I think that the way the balance of power in the world has been such that we, whether we want it or not, in Uganda, we learn about Europe. It is the center. Our educational system is centered around Europe. We aspire towards their cultures, in quotes. Most of us aspire to that life. And so it is not our fault in a way, if I say, and when I say in a way, I mean the young people. But even we are exposed, you know. We have to learn, when should I explain myself and when should I just think, this person here, I just tell them, you know, Google. I'm sorry, I'm quite busy right now, but if you don't mind, YouTube. You get my point.
No, I really.
So I feel like if I am really interested in learning about Tokyo, I will read about Tokyo. I'll buy a book about it. So I think there's an adamance, but there's also, they don't need it generally. So when they talk to you about it, it's almost like, oh, I'm curious. I'm like, yeah, if you're curious, Google. So I think I'm quite, I have my own very, very personal views and feelings about that, but I think we can all make an effort to learn about other people.
No, I totally agree. And I appreciate that you're sharing this context. Of course, mindful of the fact that you're in a Norwegian setting. So you who is married to a Norwegian, it becomes more authentic that you're arguing this way. Maybe to me who is married to Kole Uganda and say, okay,
I'm talking about just, this is an example. I'm talking about women. This is one of the biggest microaggressions that women of African descent experience in the workplace in Europe and the other diasporas. There's always a deflection away from your qualities. You're an architect and you're seated, you're going for a meeting in someone, and they want to spend 5-10 minutes talking about your hair or something. It's an unnecessary digression. It goes beyond admiring. It becomes trivial.
No, I totally agree, and I think I've also yes, we to you watching us, it is we talking about immigrant issues generally. Whatever we shall hint on here, it will be about immigrant issues. Eunice Nanzala is our guest today. She's an architect, practicing in Norway. She has gone to school and acquired a bachelor's in Uganda, and the master's degree was here in Norway. So she has, besides that, she's working with so much. So we feel that such a lady is in very good position to discuss issues to do with immigration. About identity, Eunice, before we leave that, the identity crisis, where we want to fit in. You've certainly heard of people who push to change their names to something that is more appealing to a probable employer. What's your take on that?
It is totally understandable. I have how do I say? I have been lucky enough to work, not to be around Chisom Udeze, whom you have talked about. She's doing fantastic work about diversity and all that in the workplace and understanding other people and other cultures in the context of work. And now you're talking about the name. It is a fact. There is research to back it that the name that you have has a lot to do with whether you get called into an interview. So imagine you're applying for a job where you're even maybe more qualified than half of the people, and you're disqualified from the start. They look at your name. I can understand it. I can totally understand it, and I do not deny it at all. And I don't know how could I say this? When I was applying for my jobs after, when I found out that, oh yeah, okay, I was going to stay here for some time, and this is where my main home was going to be. I didn't have Schumacher on my name. I had Eunice and Nanzala, but I was lucky enough that there was a lot of network building in the way we were at the Oslo School of Architecture. There were so many Erasmus students. It's a small school, eh? It's not like University of Oslo, which is so big. So in a way, okay, someone always tells me, Eunice, you can't always say that you were lucky, you've worked hard. But I feel like there's so many good, excellent people who have good careers going for them, and they haven't gotten into the right rooms just because of their name. So it's something I cannot deny. Something I cannot deny, because there is data to prove it. There are facts to prove it.
Okay. Yeah,
and it's a sad reality.
It's a very sad reality. And I feel that someone watching us, as we interact on such uncomfortable topics, it also brings us to a point where we either get to terms with these realities and again, awaken our understanding of them. You either appreciate them, deny them, or work to get to that point where you have to live with them. Eunice, yes, we are talking about integration. Yes, of course, it would be just passing time to ask you what integration means. This is, I think, something that we can merge in as we talk about this topic. There are different perspectives of what it means to be integrated. what it means to feel. To some people, integration might be a feeling. To others, it might be hitting a bar where some you're subjected to an assessment. Now, Eunice, you have A, B, C, D, so now you're integrated. Yes, regardless of how people perceive it, to you, what's that level someone reaches, feel integrated?
I feel like it's I feel like we're going to be, as long as we have been planted into a new context, especially those of us, I speak for myself, considering I grew up in Uganda and I've been planted here. I feel like I will always have to, like a plant, I'll always have to water, to fertilize, to to make sure that I continue to grow and bloom, because it's ever changing. I say this because this integration topic is big, as you've said. We have to remember that I am representing a person who moved here to study. That's like 22, 23. You're adult enough, you understand things. Then there are people who come here as children. They follow their parents. There are people who are born here. They're Ugandan, but they are born here. So, and then you have those who come as a spouse, they have their career, they're having good life in Uganda. And then their husband is like, I've got a job in Norway. Oh, I've got this PhD, you have to come. So we have to understand that there are different levels. But I feel like, for me, like that, when you talked about what is that point, what is that point? For me, that point is when I thrive here. In other words, to thrive. In other words,
I love your word selection.
Yeah. Okay. In other words, again, we go back, self-love, self-awareness, sit with yourself, be honest, define your personal values, standards, ambitions, put them there. And then you go to the other part, understand the context. I try as much as possible continually to understand the context I'm in. It's also ever evolving. Some things have gotten better since I came to this country, Some people have fought for us to be in certain places, while some things we are the ones who are actually supposed to fight. For some things, it's our generation that's going to fight. For the next thing, it's the generation after us. So for me, I feel like that level is different for everyone, depending on how you came here or how you are, you as a person. But I feel like for me, I feel whenever I feel like I'm integrated, it's like then there's a sweet balance between who I am, my heritage, and how I participate in my community, in this context, which is now Norway. I don't know if that answers the question. If I can always try to achieve that balance, because I am not going to be happy by shutting off my Ugandan self or my African self. It was not going to make me thrive. I cannot be Norwegian 100%, if you know what I mean. It is impossible. And so the sooner I realized it, the better. But also I realized I don't have to be Norwegian. It is none of my priorities. It's none of my priorities to speak like a person from Trondelag. It's none of my priorities to be as white as you know what I mean? It's none of my priority is to be at peace with myself and try to create that peace around my community, around my context. So for me, to answer that question, it's that balance. And I think it's continuous. And also I respect the fact that we have different starting points. I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the pride that echoes in your voice. Indeed, this proud Mugwere, this proud Muna Uganda, this proud African. Yes, I love that you really emphasize and rub it in, that it should identify you in the first place. I guess there might be a viewer who has just joined in and perhaps doesn't pick well. Okay, yes, Eunice, we are discussing integration, but also looking at that line where you can find a balance between upholding your African heritage. Why African heritage? And now Eunice is not just an immigrant living in Norway, but her African heritage in this line, it relates to her being a co-founder of My African Aesthetics. Co-founder, she's working together with her other colleague, Penina Achayo Laket. She's an assistant professor, communication design director, health communication studio at the University of Washington in St. Louis. Together, they've done a lot in the context of Euroforum, where we host people to talk about different aspects. I would only compare the two. Our concept is a TV concept. Their concept maybe is a radio concept because it's more of audio work. So in this podcast, Eunice has really proven her worth in upholding African heritage. That's why we are now hosting her to draw a line between working so hard for this and again living a life. And like I said, she's married to the former mayor of one of the municipalities in Norway. This is in a very typical Norwegian setting. So how do we balance that you don't get swallowed, you don't assimilate in the Norwegian setting, and you keeps alive? Now, Eunice, talking about that, I would love our viewer out there to try to relate this My African Athletics and Eunice, so that as we carry on, we can relate. Okay, on a balancing and what is this African Athletics, and then even the word, what is it? Share with me something about your African Athletics, so that our viewers can relate well.
I'll keep that short. My African Aesthetics is a platform, and the podcast format is just one part of it. It's the part that we've chosen to focus on to start. We have workshops planned out. We hope to have a mentor-mentee program where, like we talked earlier on, where we have young design professionals, architects, people within the design and creative field in the diaspora, where we can match them with people who have done it, so that they can actually have a follow-up by a person who is doing it. And that's why we try to get guests from the continent, but also the African diaspora. When we talk about African aesthetics, it's not just limited to architecture and design or the creatives. By the creatives, I mean, writing and, you have generally, we also have guests who are passionate about what is Africanness, actually? That is the biggest question we are trying to interrogate. And when we talk about Africanness to a Jamaican, we're going to have a Jamaican in the next season. When we talk about Africanness to a person from Trinidad who identifies as African, who identifies as Black, where do they draw the line? What puts us together? Why is it that when I meet a Black guy somewhere, I don't know, for some odd reason, I just say hi. I don't know which language to say hi in, but I give him the nod, or a woman, I give her the nod. I don't care whether she replies it with a nod or she feels, oh, who is this one? There is that thing that draws you. And for me and Penina, we're just wondering, what is the power? What is the power of a united network of creatives and designers who are proud of this heritage? Who are trying to understand each other? Because, the way people present us in the media, it's like we are fighting every time. And I told myself,
baboons.
Yes, I would rather bring up a platform where I put a person there and no one can doubt their worth. If I put Tosin Oshinowo from Nigeria there, she has proved her worth, she's doing it, and she doesn't care, And I want another African person around the world, I don't care where they are, to look at Tosin, for example, and say, she's made it. I like her vibe. That is what I want to be. So African aesthetics is really about, what does it mean to be African? And it goes from design, from architecture, from culture, but also how we carry ourselves, the vibe that we have, the hidden codes and connotations that we have, So we'll be, that is not to make it very academic, because I have a co-host who is a professor. She could, if she was here, she would have taken the academic path. But,
okay, would someone perceive it as looking at creme de la creme or something?
No.
Okay.
That is the thing about it. And what we have done here is that we've also got upcoming people, upcoming designers, upcoming innovators, It's about getting the essence of that. You know what? Africans are people of knowledge.
Yeah, sure.
Something that Africans are people of knowledge. You people, we know how to cool water with a pot. You know, we know how to ventilate. We know how to use grass thatched house. We have technologies that we have to work with ourselves to elevate. So that is what we're trying to provoke. That is what we're also trying to communicate to the rest of the world, because it is ridiculous to think that we're going to save the world with design and, you know, all these things we talk about, and then ignore the biggest continent on earth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure, sure.
So it's about African aesthetics. At least from our podcast, we predominantly have guests that are architects, designers, fashion designers in the construction industry, but also innovators. And it's about Black excellence in those disciplines.
Eunice, okay. Why African aesthetics? Okay, the inspiration behind. Okay, I can understand the whole concept, but why particularly that one?
First of all, because I think that is my lane. I am educated as an architect. I've always had a passion for design, you know, and aesthetics meaning beauty, how we express beauty, whether it's through art, whether it's through music, whether it's through writing, that expression that comes from deep within in a culture. And then secondly, mentorship. Like I told you, coming to this country, I really, really wanted to see a Black designer, a Black architect, like just to, you know, when you want to just a glimpse of someone who is doing what you're aspiring to do. And it was hard to find them. So I feel like if we make this accessible to the young people, even to the practicing people, to get, they say iron sharpens iron, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So I felt for me, I needed to create that, because I was like, if I don't, let me create it, whether it's good or not, whether it's excellent, let me create it, at least let there be a start where our people can look at these people and say, someone has done it, and they look like me, and they came from my country. So
thank you so much. I love that. I love that. I want to greet you all watching us on social media. Kaketo Sad, Joanie Tabale in Denmark, Rizik Topas in Norway, Samantha Elf in Sweden, Finland, and Jessica Businje Kabumba, Tumidako, n'abalenzi okubanga batulaba. You've already said it. You're doing a lot, and the vision tells it all. But at least I've gotten a chance to listen to one of your podcasts. Yes, the one I've just mentioned. I've also listened to one you had with Doreen Adengo, the late, where there was so many inspirations. So sad that we lost her. I have also listened to the one where you had a talk with Solomon Jagwe, Ugandan living in Virginia. In your talk, there was somewhere, as was the language app, of course, things to do with language. That was the gist of the talk. Somewhere you shared from personal experience when he talked about the value of teaching our children their mother tongues. You said that you find a challenge in teaching your children your mother tongue. Yes, there is a way you indicated, but you didn't go that much into details because you were the host. About that challenge, is it something you would love to share on? You're having this challenge, and on this side, you're upholding African heritage. Do you somewhere find this as a challenge? Are you? Would someone say you're not walking the talk or something?
Most probably, but I don't care. But anyways, the first thing is that yes, this has been and continues to be a challenge for me. Actually, one of the biggest challenges when it has come to me and my husband raising our kids. For him, not a big challenge because we are in Norway. We are in it's his context is the major context. So in a way, I also feel like, what would it be like if we were in Uganda? And then we decided to, you know what I mean? Then I would be like, oh, do we need to send them to Norwegian school?
Then
they're learning English. Who needs Norwegian? Yes, but back to the seriousness of it. I really, really, really think it's one of my biggest challenges as a parent, and You know, one of those things that actually makes you think, okay, am I really missing the point here? This for me is one of them. And like you said, because I am very occupied with my culture, not in the sense that I am the one to represent all Bagwere, but to keep my identity, to keep who I am and not lose it. And language is, it's you know, it's the language of love, you know. So it's been hard. And I've thought about this. Why? The first thing is I found it very hard to choose which language to teach my kids. And some people will be like, Ravon or Gezi Gezi. You people, my dad was a Mugwere. My dad passed away when I was 18. My mom, she should also rest in peace, passed away when I was young. She was a Muteso. My stepmom, one of the heroes of my life, who raised me, is Langi.
Hey.
And my other siblings, I come from an African family. So in my family, again, my step siblings, another one has a Choli. And growing up, my mom being a psychiatric nurse in Uganda prisons, we learned Swahili. So which language do you think we spoke at home? And my dad was an engineer, site engineer. So he was always traveling around, you know, building their hospitals here. He was more into healthcare. So what language did we speak at home?
Actually, what I've listed here 5 languages: Itesot, Langi, Acholi, Swahili, and then your language. So
for me, it has been like, and then number 2, and then naturally, I said, okay, I'm going to follow the Ugandan way. In Uganda, the most important thing you should learn first is your dad's language. And then number 2. So that's one thing my dad always did for us. He spoke to us in Lugwere. So and then we were always in the village. We were always in Palis and all that. But being in Norway and thinking of how many people speak Lugwere in Uganda, and I grew up in Kampala, so I learned Luganda. You know, it's like I had to rationalize it. I'm like, where is the impact? How are we sustaining this language which we are trying to impact in these kids? So I must say I've been stuck in that limbo, and I've ended up introducing them to Luganda and Swahili. And they hear me speak Lugwere, and sometimes they think it's Luganda because the words are what? Are close. That's why I'm saying, people, this is, for me, this one is a problem. And the other thing that I've rationalized out of this is that maybe if both of us were Bagwere, you get? And I don't know how the situation is for my dear brothers and sisters, whom both parents are not. It's not like you have a Ghanaian and a Ugandan, because there are challenges there also. But then you have a Ugandan and a Ugandan. They are Baganda. They are lucky they're even both Baganda. I wonder if it's if it's easier in that context, because both parents are speaking the same language.
Not that easy, actually.
Okay. Yes. But before you take on, the other thing is that I like I told you about the geographic spread of the language. So that's why I ended up, okay, let's Luganda, Swahili, let's do that also, because there's much content online in those 2 languages. And they're the languages I can see that are really close to what my kids would be interested in when they really want to learn this. And that's one thing. I think that's all I can say. But seriously, tips, because it's been hard for me to focus on this. And also it's the material for Lugwere online is not there. I have searched, and there's one website, and they just interpret the whole Bible. Just you can take it from there, but yes, all suggestions.
Okay. Thank you so much. I loved it when you were kind of asking, but I think it's you're also posing a challenge to those who have both parents, kids who are both parents, both from the same tribe. Yeah, my experience from my network in and outside Norway is that it's no way easier. I mean, it doesn't matter if both parents are from the same from the same tribe. The challenge about language is one we all share almost at the same degree. Of course, those from the same tribe, mom and dad, stand to an advantage, but at least there is that challenge. I loved your honesty, and where you also concluded by seeking opening up for suggestions. And that you watching us out there, Eunice, the husband is Norwegian, she's a Mugwere, and she shares on the challenge she encounters as she tries to teach her children the mother tongue. But if actually the mother tongue, I don't even know what you call your mother tongue in this case, because I don't know, okay. I
have decided that it's Lugwere according to African tradition, according to Ugandan tradition.
Because mother tongue, it's also a term that might be confusing if you really try to get the dictionary meaning of the word mother tongue. As for me, I'm a Munyoro. This Munyoro who was a dad who was a Munyoro and a mom who was a Uganda. To some extent, I've hit your bar and I've done things your way. I don't know so much Lunyoro as I do Luganda. And I've also decided that the girls should emphasize more Luganda than Lunyoro. Because at least it is a mother tongue.
When I was talking to my husband about this, it was just like, but why should they learn Lugwere? And I'm like, huh? That's me. That is actually the one that is me. And it's like, but when I went to Uganda, I was learning Luganda and Swahili.
Okay.
And I was like, oh yeah, why actually? Why? Even if you know it on my passport, you would want to have even kept that one. Mugwere. Why are you seeking that? And it's like, come on, the material is there. Those are the only languages from Uganda, not the only, but those are the main languages from Uganda where the content, and that's where Solomon Jagwe's work comes in.
Exactly.
Where the content is, you really see that this is learning content. My kids can have fun with this. It's relatable and it's modern, you know. So, but if someone is asking
about languages, okay, yeah.
If someone is asking about what I'm doing, to be honest, because I'm like, oh, I'm doing my best, and people are like, what is she really doing?
Is your best good enough? Okay.
When people call me, even if my Luganda is not perfect, here in Norway, or even if I meet someone in the train and I know they want to speak, if they give me a hint that they want to speak Luganda, I present my Luganda. It might be broken, but especially when my kids are there, I present it so that they know that, hey. And then also, we're watching a lot of Ugandan programs here. My kids know many facts about Uganda from just watching, you know. Of course, we're lucky that Uganda is an English-speaking country too. So there's a lot of content in English, but even the Luganda ones, you know, even all those videos. The other thing is also when my sisters call me, they know I am not so interested in speaking English. So they are used to hearing me speak Lugwere and Luganda. They know that mommy has that language, you know, that she speaks. And sometimes when I bring in the tough words and they're like, now. But
I hope you don't bring in Njakuku because I watched a video on social media.
No, but you remember Solomon pointed from Nkoza Nancha. He's pointed that, you know, some of us have decided that we want to pull out our language when we want punishing or when we are like, okay, now mommy is angry or daddy is angry. But that makes our kids associate our language with hostility, you know, roughness and all that. You want to tell the kid, I love you. You say, oh, I love you. Else kid, then when you want to discipline them, you get, and it's like the connotations that we make our kids build in their heads about our languages. That's another topic. I think other people can
you have a point, and I think I also had an experience with Swahili.
Yeah.
So it is actually of recent that I've come to terms with the fact that Swahili is a good language.
Very beautiful language.
We grew up hearing Fungua Mlango, Toa. So we crack jokes about Swahili, that Swahili is that Rurimi rwa Sirikali. So I actually agree with you about on that sometimes we bias our kids about our languages. The fact that every time you're pissed. And again, talking about languages, I recently celebrated my 40th birthday. And one of the gifts was this book. Tanga Mwao. Ochisome mu Luganda.
Mujjukiza.
Mujjukiza. Moina muno waka. Mujjukiza, and this is encyclopedia ya Buganda.
You see?
Okay, the author The author looked at Buganda, not just Buganda kingdom, but the ancient Buganda was actually more like addressing Uganda. So, but this person who gave me this present, it was a friend, Joyce, and her husband, Alex. These people well know that I'm in Europe. So, and I think it relates well with your decision of choosing Luganda and Swahili by game. So the fact that it's the most spoken